When people think about building wealth, they often imagine needing a huge salary or maybe making one perfect investment. But the truth is, your financial future is shaped way more by your everyday decisions. Decisions that might seem small in the moment, but are actually $1,000 decisions, sometimes even $10,000 decisions over the course of your life. So in this video, I am gonna walk you through 7 of what I call $1,000 decisions that I think you need to master if you want to improve your financial security. Decisions like choosing the right health insurance, deciding whether to rent or buy, figuring out when to start investing, and so much more. I believe that each of these choices is within your control, and if you can get smarter about them, it can seriously shift your entire financial trajectory. If you are new here, hello and welcome. My name is Lissa. I'm a personal finance expert and a certified financial planner. I am also the co-host of NetNet Podcast with my best friend Lizzie, so make sure you check it out and let me know what you think. If you are ready, let's dive right into the list. Here are 7 different $1,000 decisions I think you should master to improve your financial life. Number 1, I alluded to it earlier, choosing your health insurance plan. So health insurance feels like a boring topic, right? When we talk about building wealth, making more money, it's not the first thing that we talk about. And if I'm honest, I've always been annoyed to have to pay for it. It costs so much, especially here in the United States. The thing is, health insurance might be boring. That is until you actually need it. The wrong plan, or if you don't have any coverage at all, can end up leaving you stuck with hundreds or thousands of dollars in unexpected medical bills. Health and medical issues are just one part of life that is really hard for us to predict. Now, when it comes to health insurance, I know that realistically, sometimes you don't have a lot of choices. You might be stuck with whatever is offered through your employer or through a government program or simply what you can afford. But I think even then, you can still try to be strategic. I encourage you to run the numbers and try to estimate your total potential costs. And that's not just your monthly premium, but also trying to gauge what you might pay in deductibles and copays throughout the year. This is definitely an estimate, but you can still get a number together based on your actual health needs and your lifestyle. If you can go back and see what you tend to spend year over year and have a good idea of what you spend on medical related things, this is going to help you make better decisions about your health insurance. For example, if you hardly ever go to the doctor, and on top of that, you are fine with a more limited network of doctors, maybe you're not particular about who you go see, you just need to see someone, then it might make sense for you to pick a lower cost plan to save some money because you are okay with those restrictions. But let's say you have ongoing health needs, or maybe you just want more peace of mind, or if you're like me and you are really choosy about what doctors you see, it might be worth paying more for a plan with better coverage and more flexibility. Now, I also want to address those of you who might already be dealing with medical debt. Maybe that's because of past insurance choices or lack of having insurance, or maybe just unfortunate circumstances, just plain bad luck. For those of you who already have medical debt that you're dealing with, I want you to know that there is no shame in that. What matters the most is what you do next to help protect yourself in the future. So you can use your next open enrollment period kind of like a reset button if you want to make a smarter choice about your health insurance moving forward. And if you want to dive deeper in how to make smart open enrollment decisions, then you can check out my video on that. All right, number 2, another $1,000 decision that you should master is deciding where you live. Now, housing, in my opinion, is not just about rent payments and mortgage payments, like that one monthly dollar amount. Where you live also has other financial implications. Where you choose to live can affect your transportation costs, your taxes, your lifestyle spending, and even your job opportunities. all things that affect your finances. It goes without saying that choosing where you live can actually have a snowball effect on the rest of your finances. And because most housing arrangements require a time commitment, for example, signing a lease for a year, this is a decision that you want to make very thoughtfully. For example, let's say you pick a place to live and you love it for one particular reason. Maybe it's closer to your family or closer to your friends. But living there adds a longer commute to your job and maybe higher transportation costs. That's something to factor into the bigger picture. It's not that you shouldn't do it. I just want you to be smart about your decisions and to weigh all of the impacts, not just the big obvious ones. For me, one of the smartest financial decisions I made during college in my younger years as an adult was when I moved away from campus my senior year. So for the first 3 years that I went to UCLA for undergrad, I lived on campus or near the campus, which was actually a very pricey neighborhood. Then in my senior year, a few friends and I decided that we were gonna rent a house a little farther away. It was no longer walkable to campus, so it meant we all had to commute and use our cars, which meant car maintenance and gas. But I will say that it did save so much money compared to staying in the dorms or renting nearby apartments. Now, I got other stories about that living situation, basically living in a frat house, but that is a story for another day. Check out NetNet Podcast because I have talked about it in previous episodes. Ultimately, you want to make decisions that are based on everything that matters to you, from financial impact to convenience to safety to community and more. I just want you to acknowledge that housing is a major financial choice. For many people, it eats up 30 to 50% of their income, and for people in high cost of living areas, it can eat up way more than that as well. So take this more like a reminder that it's worth slowing down and taking it seriously to think about where you should live. And one last thing on where you live, your living situation does not have to stay the same forever. So if you find yourself living in a very expensive apartment or a neighborhood that no longer fits your financial goals, maybe they keep raising the rent on you, you can always make a change later. Don't do what I did when I used to live in a very expensive apartment and stay there just because I didn't want to go backwards and go cheaper. It was literally like trying to keep up with the Joneses. You have to remember that you need to do what's best for your financial situation. Now, while where you live matters, who you live with can be just as financially impactful, which leads me to number 3 on the list. Another $1,000 decision that I think you should master is how to choose roommates or partners wisely. Having the wrong roommate or the wrong partner can cost you thousands of dollars. It doesn't just cost you emotionally, but it can also cost you financially. I definitely learned this the hard way. So when I was younger, choosing who to live with was mostly about who I liked being around the most, what friends I wanted to hang with the most, and who I felt like I got along with on the surface. I didn't think too much about who could actually afford the rent or who was the most responsible when it came to money. And honestly, that's on me. I'm not going to blame anyone else. That was, me being younger and not knowing any better. But that was the reality at the time. So there were actually moments when I had to cover other people's rent because my name was on the lease and then they ended up ghosting me or they just didn't have the money when it was due. And rather than have it affect my finances, I would have to find ways to make the payments myself. So the smarter decision when it comes to choosing roommates or a partner and who to live with is to be upfront about money before you sign a lease. Or in the case of having a partner, before you start combining your finances. Don't assume that everything's just gonna work out because you get along personally. And even if you're in a crunch, I've sometimes moved last minute in a crunch and it was like, I don't care who I live with, I just need to make sure I live with somebody to save money. Do your best to plan so that you don't have to rush into these decisions. Give yourself time to talk about how bills are gonna be handled. Give yourself time to set expectations and also time to protect yourself legally if you need to, meaning drawing up a contract to make sure that you're protected, even when you're living with friends or with partners who you already trust. At the end of the day, living with someone does have a financial aspect and can affect your finances. So this is why I think you got to take it seriously, and this is why I consider it a $1,000 decision. Number 4, buying or leasing a car. So this is a decision that you got to make that's going to impact your finances if you live in a place that requires having a car. So when you buy a car, it's not just about the price tag that you see. You got to think about the entire financial commitment. The monthly payment, the insurance, the maintenance, repairs, and also how fast the car might lose value over time. And I'll be honest, this is another lesson that I had to learn firsthand. About 10 years ago, I decided I wanted to get a Mercedes. It was a dream car, and at that time, I could afford the down payment, and it just made sense to me. I was working in an industry where appearances mattered, and if I'm completely honest, I also cared. I felt the pressure to keep up with everyone else. Now, don't get me wrong, I loved that car and I actually only recently sold it. But what I didn't fully think through were all of the other costs that came with it. Maintenance wasn't just expensive, it was shockingly expensive. Luxury vehicles are something else. Even the routine stuff like oil changes cost way more than I expected. It was like instead of getting like a $20 oil change, now it was like 50 to 100. In hindsight, in my situation, it probably would have made more sense for me to lease a car or to just stick with the one that I already had, and I would have saved tens of thousands of dollars on that. So, what can you do to make a smarter decision when it comes to getting a car? Well, if you are car shopping, I would say don't just look at whether you can afford the payment today. A lot of times, that's what they show you at the car dealership, and that's what most people think about. Can I afford the monthly payment? Do some research and look at the total cost of ownership. Your insurance rates. Are you going to have higher insurance because you have a new car? Maintenance costs. Is this going to cost more or different than what you used to pay? Repairs. Even though it's a new car and you don't expect to get any repairs anytime soon, anything can happen. And then also your fuel needs. What's the mileage on the vehicle and how much gas you're going to need? Is it what you typically already get or is it going to be more? Rushing into choices of getting an automobile or choosing a car solely on a lifestyle want without comparing it to your actual financial situation can determine whether this car is going to cost you thousands of dollars or tens of thousands of dollars, or if it's going to cost you more than you anticipate. Cars are one of those things that we all justify and claim that we need for utility, getting from point A to point B, getting to work and back home. But it's one of those unique things in life that tells so much about your identity. And that's why it influences a lot of us to put so much more into that decision of getting a car versus just, hey, what's going to get me from point A to point B? We want the car we get to align with our identities, to say something about us, and sometimes to just be something nice to look at. Just don't forget that cars can either help you and move your life forward, or sometimes cars can quietly drain your finances. And it's not about whether you deserve something nice. I believe you deserve something nice. I believe you deserve a lot of things that are nice. But it's more about whether the decision you make on your car fits the life that you want, not just now, but also whether it fits in your long-term financial plan. All right, now big purchases like cars are easy to spot when it comes to how they impact your long-term finances. These are big ticket items we've been talking about. Your rent, your mortgage, what car you drive, medical expenses. But something that is trickier and just as important are the smaller decisions that might not seem like $1,000 decisions, but actually can be over time. For example, number 5, managing your subscriptions and your memberships. So when it comes to your expenses, subscriptions can be very, very sneaky, right? $10 a month here, $20 a month there. Maybe you pay something yearly. It doesn't seem like a big deal until one day you realize you are spending hundreds or even thousands of dollars a year on things that you barely even use. The more money you make and the more expensive your lifestyle is, the faster things can easily get out of control. So if you're a regular on my channel, then you might have heard me say this in other videos, but I want you to make it a habit to audit your subscriptions every few months. That means put a reminder in your calendar, put a reminder on your phone, and remind yourself to cancel anything that you are not actively using, even if it feels like only $7 a month or $9 a month. Because like I said, it is those small charges that add up fast. Nowadays, most subscriptions allow you to pause them or cancel them, and you can always go back. So if you notice that you're not using something, then pause it or cancel it, or use it as an opportunity to remind yourself to use the service that you're paying for. So here's how I do it. I monitor my bank accounts and my credit cards to see what the recurring charges are. I look at the subscriptions I have on my iPhone to see if there's anything I'm not using. And I keep tabs of email receipts just so that I am mindful about what my recurring expenses are. And as they come through, or every couple of months, I think about, do I actually need this, or should I just pause it or cancel it? It's a very simple thing you can do, and even though a lot of these are small financial decisions, if you make this a regular habit, you will end up saving yourself thousands of dollars over your lifetime and simply just not waste money on things that you don't care about or don't use. All right, we have two more $1,000 decisions that we're going to cover in this video, but really quick, if you are enjoying the video, please don't forget to hit the like button and drop me a comment because I would love to hear from you. Number 6, another $1,000 decision, how you handle credit cards. So this is kind of cheating. It's not really like a one-time decision, but credit cards and how you use them regularly are more like a $1,000 habit. It is a habit that I want you to make sure you are in control of, because credit cards, believe it or not, are not good or bad by themselves. Like money, they are tools. But if you don't use these tools carefully, then credit cards can quietly cost you thousands of dollars over time in interest, in fees, in lost financial opportunities because you're spending all of your money trying to get out of debt when it could be invested and making you money elsewhere. So I've seen this happen so many times with clients, with friends, and honestly, with myself when I was younger. It's so very easy to think it's just a $50 charge, or I'm gonna pay it off next month. But what a lot of people don't realize is that if you're only making minimum payments, or if you are consistently carrying over a balance month after month, then you are paying more than you need to be paying. The numbers quietly snowball, and that's when it becomes not just $10 or a few $100s lost. It can easily become thousands over time. And that thousands could be going towards savings, towards investments, or towards other debts that you're working to pay off. The things that are going to build you wealth and get you financial security in the long term. So the best way to master this $1,000 habit of using a credit card correctly is to treat your credit card like a debit card. Only use it to spend on things that you actually have the money for already. So in terms of credit card habits, staying out of debt and protecting your money is very critical, but so is growing your money. So that leads me to the last $1,000 decision on this list. And that decision that I think you need to master is knowing when to start investing. So when it comes to investing, the timing matters more than almost anything else. And I don't mean timing the market and starting to invest at the perfect time because the economy is down, but it's gonna swing up. What I mean is knowing when you are ready to start. And ready doesn't have to mean knowing everything about the stock market or having a ton of money to get started. I mean, you are ready when you have your financial foundations in place. It's when you have an emergency fund, when you have a good handle on your everyday spending, when you have a plan for your money. If you start investing before you have an emergency savings or other savings and other pools of money that provide you stability, then you might end up needing to pull out that money early. And doing that can cost you a lot more in taxes and penalties and lost growth than you realize. But here's the thing. Once you do have that basic safety net in place, the reality is you want to start investing as soon as possible. Waiting even just a few years can cost you tens of thousands of dollars over your lifetime because you would miss out on the power of compound growth, which you need time for. So knowing when to start investing is a very important decision that you need to make. Not too soon when you don't have a foundation in place, and not too late where you are missing out on compounding growth. So once you're ready, you kind of just have to start, right? Even if it's a small amount. In fact, as a beginner strategy, you can think about automating it so that you invest regularly without having to think about it. All right, that is the list. I hope that you realize you don't have to be perfect to win with money. You don't have to wait for this one big payday to come. You just have to master the everyday choices, the $1,000 decisions that are already in your control. I hope this video was helpful, and until next time, peace out.